to a brand new wave, drowning out the noise it's tame. Liberty whispers through the brave, breaking free from every chain. Nullify the rules they crave, crypto beats that pave the way. Anarchy with minds that's safe, algorithms from dawn to day. Out of bounds and out of sight, building futures pure and bright. Escape the grip and win the fight. Welcome into the legacy ride. Beyond control we take a stand, casting off the iron brand. Freedom flowing through our hands, revolution's our command. Decentralize the way we plan, all together we expand. Breaking shackles for the clan, in this journey we're unpanned. Out of bounds and out of sight, building futures pure and bright. Escape the grip and win the fight. Welcome into the legacy ride.
My piece. My piece. How can I do Crypto Wednesday without my piece? People will know I'm bald. Well, let's get into it.
Hello? Hello?
What's that? I can barely hear you.
I'm from Iran in my room.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, I'm from America. Fuck yeah.
That was a very good intro. Why you want me on this side now? Fantastic.
Gotta go
Fantastic.
to the old-fashioned ways, right?
We gotta go
Is
the
American as
old-fashioned
apple
ways.
pie.
Very good intro. I'm sorry that you're bald, man.
It's okay. We just won't let the general audience know. Go right over their head.
Like they didn't know already. Welcome to Crypto Wednesday, everybody.
Hey,
Episode
what's going on?
72. You got Baldy right there. He's the host.
Oh, no. Oh, no. It's just me. What am I going to do? I know. We'll bring Zach back up.
And for some reason, he likes this format right here where I'm on this side. So he doesn't like to be the host. He's very modest. Very modest. So you got some stories, huh? Bitcoin.com has some stories, eh?
Yeah, I was on their YouTube channel and I saw what they were talking about the situation with oil and how it's basically $150. It's a couple days ago, so the price is going to fluctuate, and it's kind of a reactionary post on how Bitcoin and the broader crypto ecosystem is going to influence the outcome of the whole situation in the longer term, not immediately. And I thought it was kind of interesting, so I figured we'd give it a shot.
That is very interesting. the simple fact that you can see it within the last couple weeks. How just the reflection of the gas pricing because of the oil. I think oil was down into the 60s a barrel up until recently. So, and
Yeah.
you've seen it in the last couple weeks. We were kind of stabilizing around my neck of the woods. We were stabilizing we stabilized around an average of like 299, 305.
Yeah.
So we were getting under 200 or under $3, which give or take, that's a win. Yay. Yeah, that's a win for right now in the climate today. But it's jumped. It's jumped. I think
Yeah.
in parts like if you go up close to Detroit and Michigan, you're looking at 389. Down here, I think my average right now is 320. So depending on where you're at in the tri-state.
I filled up yesterday morning. It was 305. So yeah, it's definitely
You're lucky.
It's stabilizing at $3.
That's what that's what I'm saying. It's stabilizing to the average of where it's at. I don't know if it has a reflection completely with what's going on over there. It obviously correlates, but it does seem like it's certainly stabilizing to what its average should be and will be. And this is helping. This isn't helping. So
well, eventually we're going to get back to like it used to be, where you had to literally pay people to buy your oil because it's in the negatives. That was a one-time only thing. That was during the first Trump administration, right?
Yeah. I don't think that's happening.
We can go for a second shot here pretty soon. So, but you want to jump in?
I think he's ushering in. He's part of the Agenda 2030 gang. Ain't gonna deny that. It's all part of the plan. Let's jump in.
Plan. Sure.
Trust the process.
It's around here somewhere. Ready?
Tensions exploded in the Middle East this weekend after Trump confirmed U.S. airstrikes on 3 Iranian nuclear sites. The news nuked crypto markets. Bitcoin dropped below 101K within minutes, and nearly $40 billion in value vanished from the space in just 3 hours.
Welcome back to the weekly Bitcoin.com's no BS recap of what actually mattered in crypto. I'm Graham Stone here with David Sensel, and this week we're looking at how a real-world flashpoint could reshape the financial system. The U.S. bombed Iran, crypto markets panicked, and now Goldman is warning about a $150 oil price. We'll unpack what it all means for Bitcoin, inflation, and mining. Plus, Trump's tariffs are already rewriting Bitcoin's supply chain. Russia is making a serious play for mining dominance, and Circle's IPO just turned Wall Street upside down. Quick plug before we dive in. David's weekly newsletter is the best 5-minute read in crypto, totally free at bitcoin.com/newsletters. Do yourself a favor and go subscribe right now. All right, let's get into it.
All right. Iran, Israel, plus now the USA. Tensions exploded in the Middle East this weekend after Trump confirmed U.S. airstrikes on 3 Iranian nuclear sites. Fordow, Natanz, and
Hey, he speaks Italian too.
Nuked crypto markets. Bitcoin dropped below 101K within minutes, and nearly $40 billion in value vanished from the space in just 3 hours. The sell-off deepened on Sunday as Iran's parliament moved to shut down the Strait of Hormuz. They said that it's possible to do it. They don't have the ability to do it themselves. The Strait of Hormuz, of course, is a critical artery for global oil and could have major effects in Europe and Asia. Bitcoin dipped below 100K for the first time in over 6 weeks, dragging down alts. Total market cap shed 90 billion, and long position liquidations topped 877 million, including 161 million in BTC longs alone. I think the long to short ratio is now 1-3.
Procrastination is not a problem. Instead, new science reveals it's the secret to finding purpose.
Everyone's heavily shorting the market at this moment. Pretty wild stuff, Graham.
Absolutely. The price of Bitcoin, yeah, obviously dipped below 100K, seems to have rebounded here above almost to 101K right now. So Bitcoin doing what it has done in previous geopolitical uncertainty events, which is sell off quickly, rebound quickly. Meanwhile, Goldman Sachs analysts are warning that oil could spike to $150 if Iran shuts down the Strait of Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz, of course, is a critical checkpoint for oil transportation, with nearly 20% of global oil and gas going through the strait. Current oil prices already include an approximate $10 geopolitical premium, and escalation paths range from no action to full closure, with a 34% chance priced in over the weekend. U.S. officials call the move to close the Strait of Hormuz suicidal, and markets are bracing for fallout. What will happen if oil actually does hit $150? If the Strait of Hormuz actually does get shut down and oil spikes, what will happen to Bitcoin in that scenario?
I think you can start by separating out the short term versus the medium term effects of this. I think in the short term, the straight closing and oil spiking that high, I doubt it'll hit 150. That seems pretty insane to me. But let's say it breaks above 100, which is already ridiculous. I think that would cause major repercussions in the real economy, and risk assets would probably price for such, which would cause them to drop precipitously. And I would think Bitcoin would follow that, if not go before that. And then for the medium term, I don't think high oil prices have a material effect on Bitcoin's price. So I'd imagine Bitcoin would recover pretty quickly, probably ahead of equities, I'd imagine. What do you think?
Yeah,
man?
doing the thing that Bitcoin normally does, which is drop first, recover first.
I do think that equities could stay down though with oil that high, just because presumably equities are pricing, like a pricing mechanism for things that happen in the real economy, and people's appetite for buying things and services would fall with oil that high. So I think it would have more of a material effect on equities than it would on the price of Bitcoin.
Yeah, and if oil prices spike, how does that affect the chance of a rate cut in the U.S.?
Pretty high. I've seen some analysts that I follow talk about this, and this would likely be a scenario where Powell would use one of his few remaining bullets. The question is the timing of it, though, and some of the initial thoughts that I've read from others is that, in Trump's words, Powell would probably likely be slow to this, as in oil would spike, there'd be tremors to the economy, equities would fall, and then Powell slowly probably would have a rate cut or two. And so you'd see this delay from the initial effects, and Powell's actions.
I think there's also something to consider here with regards to mining, with oil potentially getting cut off for the Strait of Hormuz and the price of oil spiking. It may result in higher energy costs for Bitcoin miners in the short term, potentially shifting the mining industry.
Yeah.
You may see more mining in regions where oil is kind of like locked up, like in the Gulf. They have no way to get it out, rather than just like burn it. They're going to use that energy to mine more Bitcoin. So you might see some kind of shift there.
I think I saw, again, initial posts just from this morning. This is morning in Asia, so I'm just trying to get up to speed with all the crazy world events happening. But I think it was Max Resnick. He was commenting on some data that just came out, which is immediately after the U.S. bombing. I think it's the global hash rate for Bitcoin fell, and
I saw that.
left many people scratching their heads. It seems like a pretty big coincidence. And so the question is, was Iran or some players in the Middle East, were they mining Bitcoin a lot? And then once this kind of physical escalation started, they pulled back, and it had a material effect on the global hash rate. Maybe this is just a spurious causality, so it has nothing to do with anything. But it'll be pretty interesting to see if this data actually has some kind of connection with geopolitical events, as in you can watch the hash rate of Bitcoin and be able to tell some things about geopolitics, which is pretty wild.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Let's skip ahead here to Trump's tariffs and how they're reshaping the Bitcoin mining industries. As a result of the tariffs, China's top 3 Bitcoin mining rig manufacturers, Bitmain, Canaan, and MicroBT, are relocating production to the U.S. This, of course, allows them to sidestep Trump's tariffs on Chinese imports. And together, these 3 rig manufacturers produce over 90% of the global Bitcoin mining rigs. So obviously, this vindicates to some extent one aspect of Trump's tariffs policy, which is that manufacturing will shift to the US. Perhaps more importantly, I think, as you're saying, David, it's interesting to see how Bitcoin mining is becoming kind of a geopolitical chess piece.
Speaking of, yeah. Meanwhile, an analyst is predicting Russia will emerge as the second biggest Bitcoin mining nation after the US. Pretty surprising news to me. I mean, I feel like China has really ceded ground in this over the past, 5-6 years. So GIS Mining CEO Vasily Gira, sounds Russian, says Russia is on track to become the world's second largest Bitcoin mining power within 3 years. It's a long time. Despite current energy restrictions, he sees rapid growth ahead thanks to new institutional entrants and pending crypto legislation, namely the forthcoming legislation of Bitcoin trading and the rise of self-powered mining facilities. Here we have a nation that is, a generous way of saying, is competing with the US, and now they are going to be competing on Bitcoin mining as well. Big moves. You also have, I would say, China in this mix as well. But they, again, like I said, have ceded so much ground between the US, Russia, and China. And then, as mentioned earlier, the Middle East is becoming much more serious about
I got
Bitcoin
something
mining.
to say on that one.
We were at...
Sure.
Yep. Pause that for a second. You said a joke last Wednesday on our episode.
Yeah.
The joke had a lot to do. It was just an anecdote, but you said you were using the Democrat rhetoric, Russia collusion, and then he implemented something very interesting right there, that Russia would be the second largest Bitcoin mining nation in the world.
Yeah.
Could this cycle be leading into a Bitcoin revolution? I guess a revelation as well, but a Bitcoin revolution for which the United States and Russia, the United States as in Trump, and Putin with Russia are actually in collusion over Bitcoin.
That would be funny. We're going to mine all the Bitcoin, and Russia's going to help. We're going to push China out of the seat of power. One of their seats.
I mean, it would make a lot of sense, because neither nation, I know China is not really, they're an asset right now for Russia, because they were able to maneuver away from SWIFT and implement into this proto-BRIC system over the Ukraine situation. So they're more of a trade partner asset. They're not really an ally. Russia and China still hate each other from the days of Mao divorcing from Khrushchev, because Khrushchev and everyone else, because they were going away from Stalin's idea, and Mao was a astute Stalinist, Leninist, Marxist. So I don't think there's really any good relationship there with Russia and China. So it actually makes sense to wither out the third wheel that has been rising. And what better than to kick a dragon when it's down?
Right. I mean, that would make a lot of sense. And they're not very consistent with their crypto policies either. They're trying to play the game so that they can make money off of it, but they're not playing it in it for the long-term stability.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very interesting on how this would play out. Another thing with this situation with Iran, it's very convenient that it's happening now, because Trump and Powell have actually been at odds with each other over the rates. And what he said there also, there could be also the two major points. Let's get back to reality. That's just a subjective opinion on the Bitcoin idea, kind of anecdotal. But this would effectively, he's kind of right. This would, I mean, if oil skyrockets, you kind of force Jerome Powell's hand in his final year to cut the rates, cut interest rates, which is not good, everybody. It's not good right now.
It's
really
in the short term, people will say it's good, but in the long term, it's very destructive.
Another aspect is you have the Genius Act that they're trying to get passed. I think it's in the Senate. They need to get it passed in the Senate now, right? It did pass in the House, didn't it?
Yeah,
I forgot. But you have the Genius Act. So, that's an interesting decision, in my opinion, for how the foreign policy and the geopolitical attributions of the kind of align with the crypto sphere and Bitcoin. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. When I saw the chart, the screenshot of the chart about the global hash rate, I thought, well, maybe they didn't bomb a nuclear site like they said they did. Maybe they bombed a Bitcoin mining farm. But then it came back
honestly,
up. So I don't, you really can't know unless you're there and you're like on the ground and in the know. So,
well, that's the thing about it. The new nuclear is Bitcoin, is crypto now. So it would, and Iran.
Right.
Well, just remember, Iran has been sanctioned to hell and back since 2019. It subsided a little bit under Biden, but not by much. And then just within the last 6 months to start 2025, Trump comes back in, and we've gone back to old Trump policy on Iran. So they've been sanctioned since this pretty. They've been fucked. Let's just put it that way, since 2019 with the United States sanctions. So it would actually make sense that perhaps these nuclear facilities, because we all know, like, realistically, Iran hasn't even thought about nukes since 2003. You know why? Because of what happened with Iraq over nothing. The Ayatollah said, "Nope, scrap it. We're done. We don't want a war. This is what they're going to
wind up like our neighbor." Yeah.
Yeah. We're not, I don't want to wind up like Saddam.
I was already a CIA asset. I know how the game works, and I just don't want to go back into that. I like being in control.
Yeah, pretty much. So it would actually make a whole lot of sense that perhaps the new WMD narrative is actually really just Bitcoin mining facilities. And it would make sense. We're here to make you explore and open your mind, everybody.
Yeah, man. I don't even have any mushrooms. Let's get into it before I decide to go find some.
MENA, and every local I talked to, they all said that they were serious about mining, and the government was serious about mining. So
it is fascinating that, just this whole idea that with the way energy is produced, the way you have the energy resources, oil produced in certain regions, and these certain regions are being like sanctioned by the US, but what they're doing is they're just like taking that excess energy that they wouldn't otherwise be able to supply to, let's say, Europe or their enemy nations, and they're using that to mine Bitcoin. So Bitcoin mining seems to be becoming a political chess piece, a geopolitical chess piece.
There are a couple interesting points here, though, too, because number one, you have the government's relationship with mining. This has hurt China a lot, obviously. You have the cost of energy that benefits countries like Russia and the Middle East, but also America. We have a surplus of energy too. Then you have, as the first story mentioned, the hardware itself. And I think this is where like the Middle East is maybe hurt the most. It's got to be a bottleneck for the Middle East, is just getting these rigs in enough sufficient quantity to actually use. And the number of like leading manufacturers of this equipment is very small, right? And so even if you have a government that's accepting of Bitcoin mining and you have cheap resources, you still could be stymied by the fact that you don't have access to the machines itself.
And so that makes it especially interesting that the top 3 rig manufacturers are moving to the US. That potentially provides some leverage for the United States to prevent competing nations from getting their hands on these rigs.
Definitely. I wonder what the talk in China amongst the leadership is about this, or if they even care. Because if all these other nations are kind of taking this more seriously, I just wonder if the leadership is looking at where their position used to be, right? They used to be, in 2017, that's what everyone talked about, was Bitcoin mining was in China, basically. That was it.
Yeah.
And now they seem to have dropped to 3rd, 4th. I don't know where they are.
Meanwhile, China is one of the biggest buyers of gold, which, you know, it's similar to Bitcoin in terms of its utility as a not the US dollar asset, right? And so you could argue that this is a pretty big own goal from China. They could have accumulated much more Bitcoin. Instead, they went the gold route, it seems.
Well, so there's another issue with this. I would say maybe the biggest difference between gold and Bitcoin. Well, okay, there are a couple, but one of the biggest differences between gold and Bitcoin is not physically limited like gold is, and the Chinese government is concerned about its citizens taking money out of their closed capital system.
Yeah.
And it's much harder for the wealthy Chinese to buy gold and then get it out of the country, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a physical giant thing, easy to track. But man, if you're a wealthy Chinese person, you could put hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin in your pocket and get it out of the country. And then, so I think that's probably one of the bigger reasons why China doesn't really like Bitcoin is they've been fighting pretty hard against this for a while.
Absolutely. Let's look at this Coinbase sponsoring of the US Army and how it is drawing the ire of the crypto community, perhaps.
Yeah, okay. So this is kind of tied in with the headline story of conflict in the Middle East, but it's also kind of funny. Last week, Coinbase, which is the largest US crypto exchange, kind of the darling of the industry, of the crypto industry. It's one of our, I would say, best crypto companies.
Biggest success story for sure.
Yeah, but also like a great reputation. You know, this all these kinds of things. They don't carry some of the baggage that other big crypto companies have. For example, Binance. In any case, they maybe had a misstep last week when they decided to sponsor the 250th birthday of the U.S. Army Grand Military Parade. And so you had this event which took place in Arlington and Washington D.C. and soldiers and military equipment walking by, brought to you by Coinbase. And so it left many in the crypto community, including myself, kind of scratching our heads, thinking like, what's up with this? I feel like it's a weird look for a crypto company to be sponsoring the military wing of a government. And I just felt like it was kind of at odds with crypto ethos, at least the original crypto ethos.
Yeah, absolutely. It does seem rather dirty. And then we of course have this troll post. Somebody slapped a Coinbase logo on a stealth bomber, just
B2 bombers.
How dark this is.
Bunker busters, brought to you by Coinbase. What is Coinbase's tagline? I'm sure it's something like
Economic
crypto freedom. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Military brought to you by economic freedom.
That's gold.
We're under a new regime now. We're allowed to put advertisements on the wrestling mats and a bunch of other things because Vince McMahon is out of the picture.
Hey, I hate it. I absolutely hate it. I honestly think Vince should come back. And in fact, at this rate, I think Vince.
Rumor has it. Just saying. Rumor and innuendo, as they say on 82 Weeks.
He's coming back.
Well, they say it's speculated he's gonna buy up a wrestling company or something like that. I don't know. We'll find out. But that's not what we're here.
TNA.
What?
I bet it's TNA.
Yeah, right.
Because it has that contract with WWE.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. And then he's back and he has his foot back in the door with his baby.
right?
But I
Hell
mean,
am I
the fact
missing?
that yeah, but the fact is like this troll, obvious troll right here, and then your analogy, it fits, man. What they're talking about, it fits. It's just that's the type of world we live in now.
We almost had a chance, and we're still working on it. But the first wave of innovation is obviously capitulated because there's been somebody's gotten to in the development community.
Hmm. That's why you should go to den.social, everybody. That's den.social. Become an owner, own a layer, become a voter base
A
in your
denizen.
content. Yeah, become a denizen. And become a denizen, but there is a condition though. You have to bow before your emperor. That's
I know
about
I
it.
have.
Yeah. Basically bowing to your emperor is just saying matter about 15 times. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Acknowledge him. Acknowledge me.
Yeah.
Right
Well, I was
now.
thinking more Iron Sheik, but that works too.
That's where they stole it from.
I know.
Yeah, they're just rehashing old gimmicks and making it modern. That's all they're doing with them. It's gotten stale.
Yeah.
Everybody should know, like it's bigger with Roman. I will say it is bigger with Roman. It's gotten bigger with Roman, but nobody realizes that was the Iron Sheik.
Cheeky baby.
That
It's
was the Iron
time to
Sheik,
bomb the
and
Middle East.
and then of course Sabu started doing it because in homage to his uncle, right? Yeah.
I believe so.
So his uncle and his mentor who trained him. So that was all Iron Sheik and Sabu, and then they
They keep it in
did
the
a
family.
tweak. Then they tweaked it and made it an advantage for the bloodline story when they pushed Roman. They tweaked it. It's a variation, but it's just the Iron Sheik.
Yeah. Well, you ready to get back into it?
Will do. We're almost done, everybody.
Yeah.
Peace through war. So yeah, anyway, it's an interesting thing. I think this, not to read too deeply into this, Graham, but this does, I think, in a kind of humorous way, encapsulate some of the fears that people have about where the industry is going, how it's incredibly mainstream, how it might be being co-opted by the powers that be, which Bitcoin was specifically released to kind of check against those powers. So weird.
Yeah. All right. Let's switch gears here for our last story of the week and talk about the Circle IPO. Circle stock CRCL has obviously erupted since its New York Stock Exchange debut on June 5th. It's up 674% in 10 trading days, starting at $31 per share, and it's now valued at over $3.4 billion. Despite Circle only raised $446 million in the IPO. So this hype marks Wall Street's first major embrace of a stablecoin native company. Now, we had an interesting take on this whole Circle IPO from billionaire venture capitalist Chamath Palihapitiya, and he said he slammed the IPO as a $3 billion giveaway to banks' favorite clients. And he argued that the stock was grossly mispriced. And then he used that as a way to praise the idea of SPACs,
Special purpose acquisition companies.
purpose acquisition companies. So he used this to praise the idea of SPACs and direct listings, which Coinbase, by the way, was a direct listing. And he's saying that way of getting to the public markets is actually more transparent and equitable. That's his argument. And so he's also saying that basically the people at Circle, the employees, the founders are kind of getting ripped off here. And a large amount of the money that was made in this raise actually just goes to like random people, especially like the insiders of the banks who went on their road show to bring it to the IPO.
Important thing to note here is Chamath is pretty famous for making a lot of his money on SPACs and the COVID helicopter money era. And I think a majority of his SPACs went down 70 to 80% from their listings. So a lot of people not happy with Chamath from his SPAC shenanigans back then. And so for him to then come out and say SPACs would have solved this is a bit of I think a troll.
It's a bit rich.
It's but he does, I think, have a point though, which is, or at least something interesting to talk about, which is, did Circle, the company, leave a lot of money on the table by doing a proper IPO? Would it have been better for them to have gotten more money of that 3 billion, or is what they got enough? So again, it's I kind of understand what he's saying, right? Like for this to go up 600% in such a short time does seem to me like either the market's really frothy or it was grossly mispriced.
Yeah, well, I think it's a combination of both for sure, because it's pretty obvious that there is huge appetite for something in crypto relating to stable coins, and there aren't that many options on the table right now. Circle is the most obvious option, and investors wanted exposure to that, and they're getting it through Circle.
Yeah.
One other point here, I think, which is, as we discussed on Token Narratives on Friday, this is sort of a more indication or vindication of the new narrative that TradFi is where the big gains are right now in crypto. Altcoins are down bad. They just keep getting hammered lower and lower. Meanwhile, you're seeing stocks like Circle pump 6-7x, and many other stocks that have like crypto treasury company stocks, Bitcoin treasury company stocks, all pumping like shitcoins basically, while the original shitcoins are just bleeding out day after day, week after week.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Now, this next story is kind of about what happens next.
My
right?
bad.
You're good. Well, it's while we're here, I think it's kind of funny, bank stocks, right? Oh, I'm gonna just list my financial my stability in U.S. dollar, right? And we're gonna perform. And what's the point of a bank stock? Because it's just relisting the same dollar. Oh my God, Circle, they're exposed to crypto. It's going to the moon.
Tether.
It's basically the same thing as a bank stock.
Yeah,
right?
it is. Yeah. I mean, another point, while we got it here, I was gonna wait to the end, but since we're paused because I pressed the button on accident, they bring up a point with all these. I mean, what crypto has become, the first wave of it at least, and Bitcoin and its co-opted capitulation to the rigged game of venture capitalism. Keywords: venture capitalism, IPOs, and then you have this embrace of the stablecoin community and what the stablecoins have become, not what they could be used for, right? This, in my opinion, is not what has happened with crypto is the stain of what capitalism is. You get what I'm saying? Capitalism is nothing more than just socialist light, just status apparatus. It's socialism for the rich. So those who are well connected, that are already in line, they've either had their success or their family had their success, and they're just living off of that with the help of status policies that propel that keep that success happening without having to do anything. That's where crypto needs to get back to where it originally came from. This agorist pathway, this counter economical free market idea of breaking through the system and forking away from the status quo. And I'm going to hammer it in everybody because I think this is where crypto can be and originally was made for. it's a love relationship within the idea of distributism. And I think distributism, which is a Catholic ethical economic theory, and not really economics, but an economic theory, intermingled with agorism, with the idea of agorism, which the early church was an agorist institution, or per se, even without being called agorism. So distributism has an ethical and a voluntary framework that focuses on stewardship rather than one top dog, and a focal point of ownership. And I think when you look at distributism and you look at, say, I'm going to use Den.social and the Dragon Chain Network on this for an example. But when you look at how Den.social is set up, and then you look at the definition of distributism, they align, because every single one of you has the possibility of holding some sort of ownership stake within the blockchain, whether it's through a DAO, a DAO, or smart contracts, however so you run. The fact that the blockchain runs smoothly in a transparent, not so private, but private apparatus, everything is voluntary. You have this competitive yet cooperative ethical framework. There's no master over another. There's no exploitation. It's very hard to exploit in a market that is aligned within blockchain. And so I think agorism and distributism is the way. I think we're naturally inclined to go that way. I just think that we've been molded socially and politically to be in being gaslit that capitalism is your free for all, your free society, your free market, your free whatever. This is your prosperity. But in reality, you're seeing the different layers of what the capitalist movement has led into, and you're seeing the rest of the people being squeezed for what they have, while a few people that have power and influence go straight to the bank.
Let me draw a comparison to illustrate what you're talking about here. Think about the music industry. It used to be that, it was more decentralized and they had a different working model in order to, to make money and to put people over, get them as professional artists. And then somewhere, during the 70s, 80s, they concentrated and centralized and ordered the music industry. And only one or two people at the very top get to make decisions about what people will like. And as a result, the music industry has suffered because of that model. It's the same thing with the monetary system. The people at the top don't suffer the consequences of their poor choices. They think they know the best way to order money. And so everyone else suffers. Everyone else has to work more, spend more of their time to receive less rewards in order to maintain stability. And Bitcoin comes in and they say, we have a different model that works. And as soon as they realize, oh crap, the system's busted, here, let's co-opt this. They think that they're thinking in a very short term that they've solved their problem. But really what they're doing, they're just distributing as like a layer of stability across different businesses, and they're trying to change the balance of power, but it's just not the way that open source software works. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
There's going to be alternatives that so it's not really feasible in the long term for them to go through with a plan like this and think that they're going to survive. I don't know. That's just something I was thinking about.
Homework before and we'll finish off this, unless you think that we've gone through enough. But homework, everybody. Homework for this week for Crypto Wednesday. I'm going to give you homework. Pope Leo the 13th and Pope Pious the 11th in their commission papers that I just type in Google Pope Leo the 13th and Pope Pius the 11th and keyword distributism, and you'll come up with their commission papers that they have on the idea. And then you need to read Samuel Edward Konkin III if you haven't already.
Very smart man.
Mm-hmm. So, and then keep rocking it for Mises, but I'm starting to think Mises might have actually been a Trojan horse. That's sad.
There's that type 6 conspiracy.
That's sad. I do love Mises, but he may have been a Trojan horse.
I mean,
I love. Nah.
I really doubt it, but we'll go ahead and let that go.
Yeah,
it's only got 4 minutes, so you want to just finish it off here?
That's up to you if you want to finish it.
Yeah, that's fine.
So Circle comes out, it does a 600% increase in like under a month. Obviously, this is going to bring about some copycats, right? People are going to want to follow this same narrative and run it into the ground. Arthur Hayes, the famous co-founder of BitMEX and prognosticator of the Bitcoin price, he has warned that the next wave of stablecoin listings will be quote unquote Circle copycats, and they will not pump nearly as much as Circle has. He asserts that such copycats will never eclipse Circle, the number 2 stablecoin issuer after Tether in revenue generation. That to me is to be TBD, right? He does warn this. He does make these warnings though with a bit of a compromise himself. His family office has investments in Athena, which is a stablecoin issuer rival to Circle, and it kind of makes sense for him to think that this Athena DeFi-ish way of doing things might be better than this corporate treasury TradFi, I don't know, Frankenstein thing will work.
So that's his angle.
Maybe, right? There are a couple things here, though. The first one is he's kind of saying something that I think I disagree with, which is these stablecoin issuers that come up after Circle will never do as much revenue generation as Circle, which means that Circle, he's basically saying that Circle has a moat, that they're not going to be kind of chiseled away. Their market share is not going to be chiseled away. I mean, at least that's how I read that. I don't agree with that. I think that Circle is very vulnerable, as we've said before on this show and others, to the likes of traditional finance powerhouses like, I don't know, Merrill Lynch or Consortium, as you said last week, coming together to issue a stablecoin.
Yeah, it seems like it doesn't take much for whatever network effects USDC has right now to just be eroded by someone else who has better distribution, aka a bank. And because it's crypto, the switching fee costs are trivial. It's easy if you just move from Circle to some other stable coin. So I don't see a huge moat here for Circle. And then on top of that, as we know, Circle doesn't have nearly the revenue to profit ratio of Tether. So a large percentage of the revenue that Circle generates, they lose that to their operating costs, which are a combination of their really high salaries that they pay their people and the deals that they have with Coinbase and market makers and so on. So Circle is just not highly profitable, and the network effects are questionable. So yeah, I agree with your take that they are susceptible to disruption.
I do think his initial point probably is right though. A copycat is just not going to, usually it doesn't get the same kind of boost the second time around, so Circle's done 600% in, was it 10 trading days?
10 trading days, yeah.
That's wild, man. That's wild. I think you'd have to not expect the next copycat, especially a low quality copycat, to do as well.
For sure. All right, David, anything else to add here before we wrap things up?
Nope. Just stay safe. Keep your eyes glued to the news feed. See what's happening in this Middle Eastern conflict. I know that's what I'm going to be doing.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to be having my finger on the buy button if Bitcoin dips further, and definitely watching the geopolitical events unfold. All right, David, thanks for your time, and thanks for everyone for listening. See you guys next week on the weekly.
Also, Leo the 13th, Rerum, Novarum, and Pious the 11th. I'm gonna butcher this. This is all Italian, but Quadragesimo.
So you do speak Italian.
Anno. Yes, Italian. Latin. But Quadragesimo Anno by Pious the 12th or Pious the 11th, and Rerum Novarum, which is of Leo the 13th's take and commission report. You can look those up. I'll put those in the show notes, everybody. Those are two different takes on the general idea of distributism from the Papacy. It's a Catholic idea. Distributism is Catholic ethics. But again, agorism. Crypto is agoristic in nature. Crypto is distributist in nature. Ignore the lies that they told you about capitalism. Capitalism was always a Marxian idea. He came up with the term, everybody. Think about that. Why would Marx come up with the term? Mises took it back, I will say that. Mises took it and co-opted it into his own terminology. I will say that, but it still doesn't mean there's too many different schools and there's too many different meanings.
Yeah.
To one capitalist, it differs to another capitalist. One's a state capitalist, the other's a venture capitalist, while the other is a welfare capitalist. What the fuck is a corporatism?
Corporate
exactly.
socialism. But you know who isn't a capitalist, Shill? That old man
Dave
behind
Smith.
you.
Oh, that old man.
That old man
me.
behind
Is a
you.
cat? He's a bear now. Is he Brutus? What are you
don't know.
doing, Brutus? Put your fucking pants on. Put your pants. Brutus got beat.
But is that the right Brutus? Why don't you check?
Don't make me beat. No, you're not. I'm not beating Sheldon. Sheldon, no. See that cat over there? It's on the knee. You can't. The hat's on Sheldon. I'm not beating Sheldon.
Okay.
You're not doing it. You're not making me beat Sheldon. There's no old man here.
I'm going to have to leave now, but I was sure I came in by that door over there. Hey, man, where's the door to get out of here?
Oh, it's right over there, sir.
Right over where?
The exit sign? Exit sign? It's that door right there.
That red sign?
Yeah, just go right that way.
Okay.
I think it went down the wrong door.
Where am I? Hey, what the fuck's wrong with you? That's not the right door.
Sir, you're gonna want to go to the one with the exit. You went to the door to the side there.
I went to the right doors and where you pointed me to, you fuck.
I pointed you to the exit.
Man, you're fucking with the wrong guy.
I'm sorry.
You see this bulge on my hip? You know what that is?
That's a gun.
That's a Glock. You're fucking with the wrong guy.
Yeah.
Don't ever send me to the